Hello and welcome to Painting Our Monsters. Today we're going to be working on a giant bullfrog living here in the forest. You can see I blocked out a dark spot for him from my landscape, and now I'm just going in with a little bit of a mix of red and yellow to get this varying shades of orange to kind of give us some outline of this frog. Now we're using that dark to kind of set him off from the back of it, so I left that in there. And when you do that contrast, it allows your guys to kind of pop, and we can come and fix that later if we want. But right now, I'm with this painting, I'm really trying to keep the strokes alive, so you can see the clouds have all those brush strokes in them, and you can see that the trees do as well. And so I'm trying to do that with this frog as well. So we're trying to be nice and smooth across the middle here, trying to get those nice horizontal lines so he looks like the bands on a frog. Here we do a little leg, just give a little bit of an idea of how this guy's going to look. And when you're building a monster, you think about what can your brush strokes do to give this monster some life. Not all of us have the patience or the ability to make these amazingly beautiful, hyper-realistic paintings you see out there. So for those of us who don't have that kind of patience, use the brush strokes. See here, I put in just a little bit of yellow mixed in with that orange, and now we got a tummy, right? We can kind of see his belly and kind of taking shape. I noticed a lot of you guys were really liking my videos with just the monsters, so that's why I wanted to do this one. This is real time. This is not edited. This is I just took out one or two spots where I was standing still, kind of scratching my head for 30 minutes. But other than that, this is the whole process of how we do one of these here. So just kind of start with the basic shape of him and layer it up. You can see I have his mouth in there just with that bit of black. Next thing we're going to do is start to think about his eyeballs. When I'm doing an eyeball, I love to start with the shape of the whole circle, right? These eyeballs are big old gelatinous orbs. He's using these to keep an eye out for prey. So we're making these big and thick and nice and round. And then we can give him some expression by coming in later and doing the musculature around the eye. But for now it's fine to just put those in there, and take your time, mix up some paint, and think, where do I want him looking? Is this a nice guy? Is this a mean guy? And once you kind of have an idea, you go ahead and just bring in a little bit, and you connect them to him. You can see I caught a little bit of that eyeball, and it kind of gushed down the side of his face, but that's okay. As a great painter once said, we don't make mistakes, we have happy accidents. And so we're just pulling that down along the side. So now we're going to try to do a similar thing over here where we're going to make his eyebrows and put those where they need to be. I never have patience when I'm working on paint. I love to go as fast as I can. So you can see that sometimes I catch some of my wet paint. If that's something that you don't like to do, you just take your time and you just let these things dry, and you can layer it. The great thing about acrylic paint is you can just layer it on top of each other. But if you don't have patience for that, then that's all right. You just pull it away from what you just pull it out of the way, and then come back over here and put on some more paint. And that's all there is to it. I love to work with different parts of him as I go. So first I do the shape of them, and then you see we put in a little bit of warts, and all these little steps are going to help you build up these monsters when you're thinking about it. So why does he have warts? Well, he's a poisonous creature. He's not as big as some of the other kaiju we've seen. I think he's going to grow bigger one day, but right now he's got to do his best to just eat whatever he can find in this river in front of him. So that's why he has these little warts, is to protect himself. That river, you'll notice, is bright pink, and that's bright pink because this painting took me 4 or 5 times to get it where I wanted it, and I'm going to paint over that. And if you want to see that, you can see last week's video where I paint the entire landscape for this, where I paint those trees, I paint the river, and I paint the foreground, and we just kind of breeze through the frog. But here we're just working on this guy. Beelzebufo, a giant frog. Fun thing about these kaiju amphibians is how amphibians can change. Most of them metamorphosize from a little shrimp into something real big, right? Most of these guys start off with no arms, no legs, just kind of a head and a tail. So it's fun to think about, well, how would this, as a monster, how would this guy transform? Did he start off as a tadpole? Is he going to grow into a frog? Could he go back into a salamander shape? What are the options of this guy here? And what does he need to survive in this form? I think he needs some of those warts to survive, and I think he's maybe got some more spines and kind of knobbly bits up top on his eyebrows. there's some of those frogs, I think they're called Pac-Man frogs. I'm kind of thinking about them because they got these fun little eye ridges. Just kind of stick up. I'm just working up, trying to get different little shape in there. First thing I like to do is just put down a consistent layer of paint and then go back and add those details. So that's what we did with those eyes. We put in some orange, and now I kind of look around and decide, where do I want to go next? You can paint any sort of monster you want. That's one of the joys of painting monsters. But you'll find a lot of mine are sort of based on some of the creatures of this world. Anytime I'm having trouble and feeling like I don't know what to paint or write, I just look at the world out there and go in my backyard or try to maybe watch a documentary about some of these creatures. And there's such an amazing bounty of life out there that it never ceases to amaze me, all of the different diversity. I mean, even just frogs, there's just so many different kinds with different adaptations. Some are poisonous, some can jump real far, some can swim. There's toads that survive in the desert. I mean, there's every sort of variety and size, and I find that endlessly fascinating and just soothing to know that there's all these different things out there all trying to survive, and it's through that battle that we get the diversity of life we see around us. And I think that's a truly beautiful thing. And I like painting these monsters because it kind of makes me wonder what these creatures would do if they saw what we were doing with this world. If they had a choice, maybe these frogs would get a little bit bigger, tell us, hey, you need to stop dropping your beer cans here in the water. They might not like that so much. Maybe here he's got some glands on his tummy every time he eats up a kayaker, and that kayaker has loaded up with, I don't know what's in his pockets, all sorts of bits of cans and stuff. Maybe those things express themselves in his skin, and he's got a bit of an armored layer, And sometimes you decide you want to change something, and that's what's so wonderful about paint, is you just can. So his little tummy there, I wasn't really working, I didn't think, so I just changed it, And that's one of the wonders of paint. If you're really particular, you can let your stuff dry completely with these acrylics. That'll just, let it go overnight or a few hours and it'll dry out, and then you can come on in here and do whatever you want. But if you keep the paint wet, you can work with it pretty well. I'm trying to give him some lips now. Frogs are people, I think a lot of us think they're kind of gentle little creatures, but they're actually pretty vicious predators. They only eat meat. They eat bugs. And so this guy, he's looking for mammals. He's looking for kayakers. He's looking for all sorts of stuff coming down this river. And so let's give him a little bit of an indication that he's got these dangerous lips, this huge mouth that could just kind of pop out if he feels so inclined. And now I'm just kind of giving an indication of his limbs. It can be a difficult thing to paint the hands and fingers and paws of all these creatures, so just put in some sort of indication, and then later we're going to cover it up and give him, some reeds and some kind of bushes to hide behind, because that's how your paintings work. And that's what I like about these landscapes with these monsters in it, is you tuck in the monster, which means he's got to be a part of this world, which means he can't be sticking out. He's got to kind of blend in. So I'm doing these feet, but I'm knowing, if this doesn't work out quite the way I want it, that's okay, because I can just go ahead and put a little bit of foreground in, and that'll be all right. As your paint kind of dries out, you can go in and try to touch up, try to add lighter color. Just work with one color. It's really the easiest way for me. So I'm working with an orange that I blended out of red and yellow, and I got a little bit of white too, and so anytime I'm thinking about the top of this fella, I put in a little bit more of the red or the yellow to kind of shift that color one way or the other. And doing that gives them all these little textures and bits, And that gets a lot trickier when your animal has a whole bunch of different colors, which is why I recommend just start with these monsters with one guy. Make them orange, make them pink, or think of each body part as having its own color. And then you can kind of add a little bit of shading and detail to kind of give us that 3D effect. Now I'm really liking his expression here. He looks a little fussy, He's got that frown on his face. So I'm digging that. And now his arms are looks like he's ready to leap. I like that he looks as big as this tree. There's a little bit of that darkness you can see behind him, but for me, my eye almost just forgets about it. It's like it's almost not even there. It's amazing what putting a subject in your painting can do. It allows you all sorts of little tricks and cheats, Now, one thing I know that I am going to do is add a lot more color to this fella because, to this painting, because right now he sticks out a little bit too much, and I want him to blend in, which means we need an orange habitat, you know? Now here we go, look at that, took a risk, and now we got a mean frog. And that happened just by a little bit of dark, just going through the top of that eye, and I got those little yellow lines up there, and I love those. Those are something else. He really looks frightening. Now the last thing I'm doing here is just putting in a glob of white right in the middle of the eye, or inside the pupil, and that makes it look like his eyes are catching the light, and that can be a fun step. Now if you mess that up, you got to scrape it all out, so I go real slow, and I don't try to make it perfect. I just try to get it good enough, and I pop that in there, and there we go. He looks kind of grumpy now. Now putting in a few more of them warts over the top of him, and he's looking pretty good to me. I really like how he fits in with these trees. You can tell he's as big as a tree, but not much bigger, so he's smaller than some of my other paintings, and he's a lot of fun. I'm liking this guy. Now he definitely needs to belong in this world, so if you want to see how I do the river, go ahead and look at my previous video, or you can see how I do the trees and laying all that stuff to make this guy a part of this world. Those videos are a little faster than this one because I thought that you'd appreciate this at a reasonable speed. But you can see here now I'm just adding all this in to make him fit, and that's about it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you had a good time.